Google Maps, everything like that. I went and checked it out. Sure enough, here's the finish line, and Google Street View tells you it's 666 Boylston Street, Boston, Massachusetts. There it is right there, in plain sight. Okay? And right by that is where the bomb went off. So, that's evidence right there. And does it mean something? Yeah. Now, I may be wrong on what I think it means, but the evidence is clear. The finish line, it's a statement of fact. It's at 6-6 in Boylston, and we know what that number means. We know that number has ramifications on it. We know that it has a significance of end-time events. We know that. So when we see something like that, we go, wow. I think I'm going to look into this. Now, along with that, I showed this graphic to show you that the Masonic Lodge is related to the number 603 there's a fact, right? There's the picture. And if you don't believe me, go to Hershey, Pennsylvania, get you some chocolate, and go to the Masonic Lodge. Take the same picture that I did. Okay? That's all you got to do. Take the same picture I did. So that's evidence right there. Photographic evidence. Not manipulated, not photoshopped in any way. There it is right there. Now, guy sends me an email. I don't remember when it came in. And I was just going through old emails, which is what I do before Pastor Mike Online, see what's up, see what kind of information people are trying to send me, because some of it's pretty good. Guy says, Pastor Mike, the starting line of the Boston Marathon is at a Masonic Lodge. And I went, oh, but I got to prove it. I got to prove it. So here's what I'm going to show you. Now, if I made the statement that the starting line itself is right out in front, goes right up the driveway of the Masonic Lodge, that would not be the case. However, there is a proximity here that I think is interesting. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. This is from the Boston Athletic Association. This is from their website. See, this is what you do. You go look around to see, be circumspect. Walk looking around to see if these things are true. This is from the Boston Athletic Association, showing you where their starting line is. This is in, what town is this? I've been doing this research now for an hour and a half, and I can't remember what town it is. But anyway, it's somewhere way out. It's like 20-some-odd miles out of Boston. I guess that's why they start the marathon there. Okay? Now, here is an actual Google image overhead of the starting line of the Boston Marathon. I want you to notice that up on the upper right-hand corner, where the road just sort of goes into the upper right-hand corner there's a line that crosses the road there that says start. That's the starting line. You can check this out on Google Earth or whatever. That's the starting line. But granted, there's some 35,000 people lined up here. And over to the left, you follow the street down over to the left, you end up at the Masonic Lodge. Here is a picture. This is the Google Street View. This is the Masonic Lodge that just happens to be very, very close to the starting point of the Boston Marathon. Now, there's something else that I'm going to add in here. This is actually the website of the, let's see, what Masonic Lodge is? The John Warren Masonic Lodge. In Massachusetts. The bottom paragraph says, organizations that, here's what they do in the community. John Warren Lodge is an active lodge which supports the community and its members. We supplied the first statewide, blah, 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 and so on. And then it says on the bottom, let's see here. At the start of the Boston Marathon, we welcome Masons from around the world. So that's one of their boasts, is that they are located at the starting point of the Boston Marathon. And I guess, in sort of a roundabout way, that idea is true. Now, if we were to add these two little pieces of information together, the starting point and the ending point, which is like a dead on, then we have something. What do we have? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I don't know what exactly this involves. I remember what I talked about Thursday, how the Bible talks about I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling, and I think it could be, a case could be made for the fact that here you have a symbol. You have a Masonic symbol going from the lodge, the starting point, to the 666 ending point. And by the way, I don't need this little tidbit of evidence to tell you that Freemasonry is progressing people toward receiving the mark of the beast. But this certainly does fit in with that idea and with that concept. So I asked the question, what is the end game here? What's going on? Was it a false flag? Now, the funny thing is, most people who use the term false flag probably don't even know what it means. Well, it's, something that's false. Well, I'll tell you, 3 people died in Boston, Massachusetts that day. 180 some odd people were injured. Most of these people, a lot of these people, I don't know about most, had to have body parts amputated. And if you don't believe that, make a phone call. Get a phone book out, call 6 people in the Boston area and ask them, did this really happen? 1 out of those 6 people are going to say, I was there. That's all you got to do to find out that it was true. Now, it really happened. Why did it happen? Let's look at some of the obvious things that we know is going on. Here's one thing that I find that's interesting. I don't know what it means. I find it's interesting. Glenn Beck made the statement over the weekend that the Obama administration has until Monday to cough up the fact that there was government involvement in this, or he was going to spill the beans. Now, Glenn Beck has a little reputation problem as far as I'm concerned. Glenn Beck got on, if you remember this, when he had his show on Fox News. I remember watching it that morning. Glenn Beck is telling everybody on Fox and Friends that morning that he was going to do a piece debunking the FEMA camps. He was going to tear that mythology to shreds. He tells everybody on Fox and Friends, not so fast. We found evidence that leads us to believe that FEMA camps are real. I believe in them. That afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Central, I'm watching Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck, hello, Americans. Let's talk about something else, shall we? And then he makes this spiel like, the Illuminati got to me. Oh, I'm scared. He made a big joke out of it. But now he's not even going to talk about it. He's not even going to say, I said this morning that we had evidence. I dug into it further. We found out it was a hoax. Let me tell you he didn't talk about it at all. Why? I don't know why. I just know he said this morning, and he said this in the afternoon, and they weren't the same. So we can imagine what somebody got to him. Maybe somebody had dirty pictures on him. Maybe they had a gun to his kid's head. Maybe they offered him, $20 million. I don't know. But he changed his story. So here's Beck now talking about, you remember the day of the Boston bombing, they arrested a Saudi national. I think that this is the same guy. I haven't really had a chance to read all this. But I think that this is the same guy that if you see photographs of a guy with his clothes all blown off running away from the bombing, I think that's the same guy. Anyway, this is, let's see, Michelle sent this to me. Appreciate it, Michelle. Saudi national, originally identified as a person of interest in the Boston Marathon bombing, was set to be deported under Section 212(3)(b), security and related grounds, terrorist activities after the bombing. As the story gained traction, the Blaze's chief content officer, Joel Cheatwood, received word that the government may not deport the Saudi national, originally identified as Abdul Rahman Ali al-Harbi. Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano refused to answer questions on the subject when confronted by Representative Jeff Duncan, Republican on Capitol Hill. An ICE immigration something official said a different Saudi national is in custody but is in no way connected to the bombings. A congressional source, however, says that the file on al-Harbi was created, that he was linked in some way to the Boston bombings, though it is unclear how, and that documents showing all this have been sent to Congress. Key congressmen of the Committee on Homeland Insecurity requested classified briefing with Napolitano. Fox News Todd Starnes reports that al-Harbi was allegedly flagged on a terrorist watch list and granted a student visa without being properly vetted. Now, it just seems to me that the Department of Homeland Insecurity is not really looking at foreign people who might be a threat to our country. It seems to me that the Department of Homeland Insecurity is more interested in looking at you as a threat, but not the foreign guys, because they let this guy in on a student visa after being on a watch list. Why? Anyway, sources close to the investigation also told him that the Saudi is still set for deportation. New information provided to the Blaze reveals al-Harbi's file was altered early Wednesday evening to dissociate him from the initial charges. Sources say the Saudi student visa specifically allows him to go to school in Findlay, Ohio, though he appears to have an apartment in Boston, Massachusetts. Sources tell us this will most likely now be kicked from the DHS to the DOJ and labeled an ongoing investigation that can no longer be discussed. Monday morning, Glenn Beck laid out what he knows about the Saudi connection to the Boston Marathon bombings. It is a story that the mainstream media has all but completely ignored, that I believe. Through Beck, though Beck says the Blaze's chief content officer reached out to numerous other networks in an effort to get the story out. Homeland Security Secretary Gianni Napolitano refused to acknowledge the story even existed when questioned by Representative Jeff Duncan. But now a number of congressional sources have confirmed that the story is as the Blaze reported last week, and Beck is presenting more pieces of the big picture. Beck said this week has changed me. He said the events in Boston changed me. The events in Washington around Boston changed me. Might I submit to you that that is part of the overall scheme? Remember, Barack Hussein Obama ran and was elected on the idea of change. We're going to change everything. I'm going to go way back to, I think it was like the first or the second Watchman video broadcast that ever appeared on planet Earth. January of 2009. And I remember that this was right around the election. And the housing crisis, the stock markets were dropping like crazy. This is when one guy, I can't remember his name, was out on the stock market floor going, "We need another tea party." And so you know what? We had a tea party. Here is Henry Kissinger talking about the hope that the financial thing, Barack Hussein Obama's regime and everything else, going to bring about a new world order.
Aaron and I are standing here on the floor now with former Secretary of State Henry
Kissinger.
Go
ahead. Start talking.
Who was here ringing the bell, commemorating 30 years of U.S.-China relations, which, of course, were made possible by the hard work that Secretary Kissinger did while serving under President Nixon. We welcome you, sir. Thank you very much for being with us.
Good to be here.
The obvious first question is the situation in Gaza. It's an area of the world you have worked very hard on. What is your view?